thank you for the introduction and for having me on this panel. I think that most of us agree that FP&A function is continuous evolving. And in my own department, we used to be expected to report actuals and variances versus budget and provide quarterly forecasts and do ad hoc analytics. And now it's much more than that. We're asked to really maintain a good line of sight on the financials at any given time, not only to report on the financials, but in a way to start managing them from a financial perspective. And that's, for us, has required a different approach. That approach is what we're talking about, continuous planning. There's a need to have items revolving around people, process, and technology to achieve continuous planning. I would say that on the people side, it's really a change in mindset in that about what the role of FP&A is or can be within an organization. I often say that actuals are not actionable, and in fact, they are quite obsolete by the time they are reported. So to add more value as an FP&A team, we need to shift our mindset to be forward-looking to better anticipate the future. In my organization, I have the benefit of leading both the FP&A team and the analytics and business insights team. And that gives us a chance of having access to all of the financial and operational data that is needed for continuous planning. And with the financial information and the deep knowledge of operations under the finance team, we can be a better strategic partner, and that's led to better ability to translate the changes in the operations into financial impact. We're also quite transparent about the financial impact of the key KPIs with those who are accountable for them, and that's led to a better partnership between them and FP&A. I'd say that we benefit from a leadership team that sees value in being proactive and who is used to making decisions based on data, which is also needed when it comes to continuous planning. On the process side, I collaborate with a small group of people who understands the link between strategy and operations. And as the name implies, continuous planning is not static. It's an iterative process. It's not something that you do and then you leave alone until the next budget season, but it's a planning that gets revised as often as needed to keep a really good line of sight on the future. As for technology, certainly having access to quality data is important because continuous planning involves both financial and operational data from across the organization. And the platform that is used, whether it's simply Excel or something more complex and integrated, should be at the end flexible enough. But I would say that the tool doesn't deliver the quality of the planning itself, but it certainly allows to achieve it in an easier way. Moving on to the next slide. So you may ask, what are some of the first steps to start the journey towards continuous planning? And I call this a journey intentionally because it's not an all or nothing concept. Just doing a little bit of continuous planning in areas of the business that directly drives results can be actually quite valuable. And as simply as it sounds, I'd say, you can get started just by being curious and forward-looking. And I say curious because it's no longer about just applying a percentage growth to revenue and deriving expenses as a percentage of revenue, but you really need to start with the key drivers of the business, whether they're internal or external. Then there's a need to understand what's behind those drivers, right? What are the leading indicators and what moves those leading indicators? For us, the business insight team brings this deep operational knowledge on leading KPIs to FP&A. And we have automated reports that track all the operational trends so that we can stay on top of that. I'd say the next step is to build a financial model based on those drivers. The model, again, should be simple and flexible, where you can change assumptions so that you can run different scenarios. My own model are simple enough that I can share them with colleagues outside of finance. They understand them, and they also have the flexibility to run their own scenarios with assumptions. But one thing to remember is that it's not meant to be a mini budget, right? It does not have to have all the P&L line items. It's a model or a set of model that can give quick answer to all kinds of what if questions. And the goal of the model is to quantify the impact of those what if scenarios on the financials. Not just on the revenue and expenses, but really a three-way model that includes the balance sheet and the cash flow. And on the next slide, I really want to talk to you about how I actually apply this on a day-to-day. So I work at Ultimate Medical Academy. It's a non-for-profit school. We have mostly online, and we have over 15,000 students across the US. The key drivers for us are the number of students that are active and our student support staff. The leading indicators for the number of students, that includes the number of inquiries that we receive as a school and where those inquiries are coming from. The staffing level in admissions is also a big driver, and how students retain along with their graduation rate. On the leading indicators of student service, that includes staffing levels in student-facing departments. But it also includes the tenure and the attrition of that staff and how we have the ability to recruit at those entry-level positions. I have a weekly meeting with marketing and admissions to stay on top of trends, challenges, etc. And I get daily and weekly reports on showing the leading indicators. And when I see trends, whether they're favorable or unfavorable, I look to understand what's behind those trends and what really is happening. If a trend is favorable, how can we capitalize it? We have the ability to make quick decisions to increase marketing spend to drive inquiries on any given month. And the people who are meeting weekly have the responsibility and the ability to make those decisions without having to go outside our group. Couple examples of what if scenarios that we plan for ahead of time are listed on the slides. And I want to touch base on two of them. The hurricane one, right? We're in the US. We are impacted by hurricane during hurricane season in the southern states. And when a hurricane is coming, we can know very quickly how many inquiries we're likely to not have if the hurricane is, having impact for 1 day or 3 days, and what exactly that impact is on revenue, expenses, and cash. And it's the same thing for our frontline staff tenure, staff tenure. We've done analytics that shows that, for example, an admissions rep, it takes about a month and a half to ramp up to full production. But our career service staff, it takes up to 6 to 8 months. And so we can plan the financials based on that. And again, plan not just at the expense or revenue level, but really the three-way model that we were talking about. Now, we're a mid-sized organization. We're currently going through a digital transformation. This means that we are still in Excel and that getting some data requires efforts, too much efforts at times, but it hasn't stopped us from building simple models in Excel to plan for those what-if scenarios. And as I mentioned, we are a non-for-profit organization. We certainly calculate the impact on our financials, right, and bank covenants, but we also look at the impacts on non-financial ratios, such as graduation rate, career placement rates, student debt, and a host of other compliance metrics that are very important to us. So overall, our organization sees value in the ability to be agile and quickly respond to the scenarios that really truly impact the financials.